Welcome to the Long Horizon Show. I'm your host, Luke Fears. This show is about gaining perspective by sitting down with men and women who've lived long enough to know what truly matters. People who have walked the long road, faced real challenges, and come out the other side with wisdom you can't shortcut. Today I'm honored to sit with Mr. Clifton Taulbert, a veteran, author, and entrepreneur whose life spans a remarkable chapter of American history. For our listeners, Mr. Taulbert is an 80-year-old black man who grew up in the Mississippi Delta during the legal segregation. He's spent decades since building, writing, and sharing lessons learned in those early years. I've had the privilege of knowing Mr. Taulbert my entire life and have observed firsthand the impact of his leadership. I am so excited to share his wisdom with you. This conversation is about resilience, character, the impact of community, and the kind of wisdom that only comes from walking the long horizon. We hope you enjoy this first episode of our 4-part series with Mr. Clifton Taulbert.
Very excited to have this interview today. We've been talking about it and thinking about it for a long time now. So thank you for coming. It's an honor.
Well, it's helpful that I've known you most of your life.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, if I could take away some of those numbers, I'd probably say, nope.
Well, yeah, I have known you my whole life. I've looked up to you, and so again, I'm really excited to share with the world what little I know about you, and to hear your life story and to glean some wisdom from you.
I had no idea, growing up in the cotton fields of the Delta, that a writer lived inside of me. I'm as just surprised as everybody else.
Yeah,
But, but I'm very grateful that my life turned out the way it has, and I've been given opportunities that I never could have dreamed of. And I have the opportunity to tell young men and women and older people as well, we don't have the moments to seize every second. So when that moment comes into any of our lives, we need to do whatever we can to seize the moment. Because once that moment is gone, it will never, ever be back again.
Wow. So like living in the present moment, that's what you mean?
See, when your heart feels called for something, when you feel that you should be doing something else or doing something better, not better in terms of better or worse, but adding more to what you are doing and looking at the moment, and it hits your head, you think about it. And so it's so easy to let something go to our head and not in our head. It kind of circumvents and get around there. But I know had I not seized the moment, I wouldn't be here with you today. When those moments came, I embraced those moments with everything that I had. Not sure what the outcome would be, but with the clear understanding that if I grabbed that moment and grabbed the feelings that were associated with that moment, that my life would be better and my life would be better served for others as well.
When you talk about this, it makes me think of time. You know, the moment in time. You're 80 years old, and I'm 40 years old. And so a big reason why I want to have this conversation and to share it, with my friends is, life's a struggle. And in these moments, we can be stressing about the past or the future, filled with regret and shame and whatever. And we forget the moments. And that's, again, part of the reason why I want to have this conversation is you've had double the number of moments in life as I have. Your experience and your wisdom and what you've learned. You have a really rich perspective. And so I'm excited. What I want to do is go chronologically and start from the beginning. Tell us about your upbringing and what it was like living in a legally segregated community.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to ask that question. What was it to live in a legally segregated community? How did it impact you? How did it feel? What were the circumstances that you had to deal with? But there's two sides of that. I wrote Once Upon a Time We Were Colored for a reason. I was a young soldier at the time, being destined for Vietnam. But I was very fortunate that those orders never came through. Instead, orders to the 89th Presidential Wing in Washington came through. But in writing Once Upon a Time, we were colored. I used to write it at Dow Air Force Base is where I started writing. All of my friends would be out going to the party, having a great time, because they knew that within hours a day they would be sent to Vietnam. And as I knew, most of our friends did not return home. So I would sit in my barracks room with a yellow pad, no laptop, a yellow pads, and I started writing thank you letters to the people that had taken good care of me. It took me to have that fear of Vietnam and that I would be shot dead in Saigon somewhere, before I told the people in Glen Allan how much I loved them. So that's why I started writing. To write a letter to every one of them, to tell them how much they had been to me. And they were the village that pushed me forward.
How old were you when you started writing?
I was probably 19.
Oh, wow. Okay. And how old were you when you published?
20, okay, that was it, about 24 years later. Because I carried the manuscript around for 24 years.
Okay. Wow.
Nobody would publish it.
Yeah.
They said it wasn't worth it.
Huh.
Because when you have a black man writing a book about this integrated and the segregated South, they're looking for catastrophes. They're looking for major problems. They're looking for death. They're looking for drama. Yeah. And I'm showing them another world. And I remember going to New York to talk with my publisher, and the first thing out of my mouth was, and really, but in your book, Mr. Talbot, no one has been raped. Then I realized that the world had a view of the Mississippi Delta that was not mine, because my view was shaped by the people who care for me. And in that view, I sat at that dining room table. I ate. I went to school. I did what was right. I honored them. I trusted them. Now I might be going to Vietnam. So I'm going to write letters to all of them and have someone to bind them for me, so they will never forget how much I appreciated their walk in my life.
So let's talk about the people we were writing letters to and kind of, your family.
Yeah. Well, the first letter that I would write to my great-grandparents, that they were still alive and I was young, Papa Joe and Mama Pearl. Mm-hmm. And we lived 27 miles from the Queen City of the Delta, which was Greenville, Mississippi. And to get to Greenville, as said by Paul Galloway, who was a writer for the Chicago Tribune, he said for young Clifton Taulbert to get to Greenville, Mississippi, from Glen Allan, Mississippi, was tantamount to taking the Concorde to Paris, France. I mean, Greenville was just that important in our mind, but you could hardly get. Some people never went to Greenville, 27 miles away. No car to get there, no money to spend. Well, my grandpa, I'd be sitting on the front porch with my knees put up to my chin, looking as far as I could. And all I could see was the cotton fields that I'd seen all my life. Then my grandpa opened the front door. Clifton, you want to go to Greenville? Okay, boy, come on, let's go. But his car never started. He'd get in the car. I'm happy. I'm in the front seat with my grandpa. I'm happy as I can be. Papa turns the ignition. Nothing happened. Absolutely nothing happened. Finally, he said, boy, go break me a Chinaberry stick. In that world in which I grew up in, you didn't talk back to older people.
Sure.
You just did what they told you. Okay. So I just jumped out of the Buick and got a Chinaberry stick, broke it off and gave it to my grandpa. He got out of the car, raised the hood of the car. He did something under the hood with the Chinaberry stick. Then he get back in the car started. And away we go to Greenville, Mississippi, 27 miles away. But it took my grandpa 2.5 hours to drive 27 miles. Because Papa stopped and talked to every single breathing human being seated on that front porch. And he told me, now, boy, speak up. Speak up, speak up. And he told me to speak up. Then he asked, do you guys want something from the city? That's what we call Greenville, the city. Mm-hmm. He said, we're getting for you. The boy, write it down. We're getting for you. Because most people couldn't go. Yeah. They didn't have cars that need to get there. So I would write down on my little tablet what my grandpa told me to do. But 50 years later, 60 years later, I realized that my grandpa was showing me what it really meant to live an unselfish life.
Yeah. He seems like a community builder.
He was definitely one.
For sure. For sure. Now, they kind of raised you, right?
Yeah.
You tell me, I actually just watched Once Upon a Time When We Were Colored. I'm going to feature that right now. This was the first book that Mr. Taulbert wrote, and what he's talking about here. So in prep, I read it and watched the movie again. It was really um, inspiring. And
Yeah, because in my life, I don't have a what I call a cottage life with a picket fence around it and a little dog called Corey. No, I was born to my mom while she was still in high school, or just started her college the first year. I think she was 19, maybe 18, something like that. And her grandparents, not her parents, but her grandparents, Papa Joe and Mama Pearl, said, "You go back to school, they'll raise the boy."
okay,
He said, "That's how I got to their house."
her grandparents.
Her grandparents.
Wow. Okay. So you lived with your great grandparents early on in life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then it seems like you moved in with an aunt.
Yeah, it was with their daughter.
And her mom,
Mama Punk.
Ma Punk.
Her name was really Ella Peters Lewis.
Okay.
That was a long.
Everybody calls her Ma Punk.
Ma Punk, everybody.
That's awesome.
And I owe whatever I owe to, I owe it to her. Because she said, if you live with me, you're going to go to school. And that's a big statement to make because I'm a guy. And she has to work in the field. We all have to work in the field. That's the only fun we had. You made fun, F-U-N-D, not F-U-N.
Yeah.
You made $2.50 a day, maybe. You work all day in the hot broad sun. You don't leave. I have such a soft spot in my heart for migrant workers because we were domestic migrant workers.
Sure.
The truck will come to your house, pick you up like 4:30 in the morning. You get on this truck, you don't know where you're going. It lets you off, it picks you up on time, and that evening bring you back home. And you make $2.50 a day.
And was there incentive to like pick more, you make more?
Well, there's two things you do in the cotton industry. One is we call it chopping cotton, and it's really that's a misnomer. It's where you weed the cotton fields of grass and things.
Okay.
That's where you make $2.50 a day.
Okay.
That's because you're just doing one thing.
Yeah.
But picking cotton, that's another part of the season.
Okay.
And what you make depends upon how much cotton you pick.
Sure.
So to some degree, you're somewhat kind of, sort of, maybe in control of the destiny of the cotton sack. The 9-foot sack has around.
Then make you think that, at least. Make you think you're in control, but not really.
Not really. No, it's and that's why the porch people, as I called them, are so important to me, because there were so many of my cousins, so many of my friends who never left Glen Allan, who never had a chance to discover who they were, and what types of contribution they could make to the world in which they live. It's amazing. I just ran into a guy several years ago from Glen Allan, never met him until recently, but he's related to Muddy Waters, the great blues singer.
Okay.
And he's called the Prince of the Blues.
Yeah.
And he's a young kid, and he plays all over Europe. And he'll call me. I'm old enough now to be called uncle by everybody.
Yeah.
And if all my nephews would show up, it'd be the most integrated world we would have ever seen.
Yeah.
But just to stay in touch with him, because he said, you're my example of what can happen.
Yeah.
Just little things like that. But it's the consistency of the moment captured that you take advantage of it. And you understand there's something you can do to make a difference. And when I say that, to say legal segregation, racism existed, but it didn't exist in our house. Mm-hmm. It wasn't on our front porch. It wasn't on Papa's sunroom. It wasn't in Mama Pearl's dining room. It wasn't in the kitchen. It wasn't in the smokehouse where all the pigs would be killed and the meat hung up to dry. It wasn't in Papa's Buick. And that's where we lived. Right across the street was a white family. And and we abided by the rules of legal segregation, even though we've known each other all our lives. And Miss Brown, that's her name, if she was cooking or making a cake and ran out of an egg or something, she'd send her grandkids over to our house to see if Mama Pearl had extra egg. And they'd get the egg back to her, like that. But you had to call her Miss Brown, or she called my great-grandmother Pearl.
So in some ways there was community. I mean, you're acting like neighbors.
Yeah, I mean, that's you seized that moment.
Sure.
To find a way to maximize your humanity, to give yourself an opportunity. But the rules of legal segregation, you're born into those. I didn't have to learn them. I was taught how to avoid certain circumstances. When I grew up to the store to buy something, my grandma said, whatever you do, never look a white person in the face. Don't even look at them. You can talk to them, turn your head, but never look at them.
Wow. And, you know, the stuff that we've seen in media growing up, the different water fountains, different
That was my word.
white only bathrooms, the schools segregated clearly. But then from a community standpoint, where, you know, it's featured in the movie, there's an older white lady that takes an interest in you and gives you some books.
Well, yeah,
That sort of thing.
yeah, legal segregation is the social and cultural laws of the land. But it didn't necessarily, a white American, a Southerner, for the most part, could break the laws. Black people would be problematic if I broke the law.
Sure.
Mrs. Nice, the lady that I worked for after school, she had a fig orchard. And she hired me to rake piggies. And so one Saturday I'm working, and she comes out and she said, Clifton, it's time for us to go and eat lunch. And I was smart enough in school to know that she used a pronoun that is not common to use, us. It was time for her to go eat lunch. I didn't have a lunch. So I was standing back. She said, no, come on, follow me, follow me. And I went into her beautiful home on Lake Washington. And it always amazed me. 50 years later, I remember the table was already set for two people. She had no children. Her husband had died.
Wow.
I mean, she had planned this.
Yeah.
That I would eat at her table.
How old were you when that happened?
Probably, I was getting ready for high school, probably 13, perhaps something like that.
13.
13, 14.
Do you sit down to lunch? You're probably scared, I imagine, intimidated, perhaps.
No, just imagine you're black and you're sitting there. You'd be scared. Yes,
What was that like?
It's kind of like you come to Mars and you met the first Martian.
Yeah.
And we're going to eat. What are you going to eat? What you going to have? Well, the menu was baked chicken, lima beans, and light beer and sweet milk. That's what we had.
Okay.
And I did not know what utensil to use, fork, knife, whatever. So I'm kind of sitting there, but I was watching what she did and sort of said, well, I guess if we eat it, we eat. And I just kind of got to remember getting my baked chicken and trying to cut it or whatever to do something with it. And then she just kind of interrupted my mess and said, now, Clifton, what books are you reading? So I was proud enough to tell her what books I was reading, which was probably Superman, Dragon Knight, and whatever. It had nothing to do with academic progress. And she went into what I call a Mississippi hissy fit. This way, just go, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that. Clifton, you need to go to the library. And I said, Mrs. Knight, I can't go to the library.
Because the library is segregated.
The library is segregated.
Wow.
But the reason she said you could go to the library for in that moment in time, her humanity had touched mine. And she realized for a young kid, the library was very important. At that moment, I'm not the black kid, I'm not the white kid. I'm just a young kid that needs guidance. And the guidance from her perspective was go to the library and read the best books you can. Mm-hmm. And so after that, we just kind of finished eating and never said anything about it. Next week I came to work, rake fig leaf. And I don't know if you ever raked a fig leaf before, but they don't move quickly. I think they had 100,000 suction cup based in every leaf. And she had already come out there. I mean, she just, now, Clifton, make my yard look like a carpet. I want a nice green carpet. Yes, ma'am, Mrs. Knight. You would have a nice green carpet. Well, when I came back next week, we made the nice green carpet. She invited me in again for lunch. This time, there was a stack of books about like she played.
Wow.
And I will never forget that.
Yeah.
It wasn't one time. She stayed part of my life until I graduated in #1 high school. I had to travel 100 miles round trip every day to school.
100 miles?
100 miles. And the white high school was right behind my house.
Whoa.
But my great aunt said, "You're going to get an education." She got up every morning before I did, stood on the front porch in a flannel gown and a scarf tied tightly around her head, and pulled the strings on a 60-watt light bulb. She just pulled it and pulled it and pulled it. So when the driver of the bus, Murray Washington, turned that corner, he would see the flashing light, because she said I would never miss a day out of school, no matter what.
Wow.
And Mrs. Nice provided books.
Wow.
And she didn't stop.
You remember what first book she gave you was?
It was from the classics.
Okay.
That's a whole stack of them.
Sure.
I mean, personally, I would have preferred a comic book.
Yeah, right.
But she was looking for my future.
Wow. And her name, Miss Knight?
J.B. Knights.
Miss Knight, okay. Did you ever go back and live with your mother?
No, it was a combination of having to live, because I was born out of wedlock, having to live with someone, that's part of it. But my punk, after her boys grew up, her oldest son, Sidney, he was the first person in our community, white or black, to receive a doctor's degree.
He could become a doctor or a doctorate degree?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And so she was determined that my punk, that I would get this education.
Yeah.
And to do that. So she made sure. And the bus driver came, picked me up every day, that 100 miles round trip. And we didn't have lunch money some days. And I said, "Mama, I call her Mama. I said, Mama, we don't got no lunch money. What are we going to do?" She said, "Nothing." She said, "Nobody starves in a day. Get on the bus."
No excuses.
No excuses. I mean, my son used to give me excuses. I said, "If only Mama could have raised you. You don't know, that's making no sense what you're asking me."
Yeah.
Because I'm going to say no.
Yeah.
I was taught to say no. I don't know how to say yes.
Oh, that's great. And your uncle, I don't know if I have the Once Upon a Time when, Who Owns the Ice House? Tell me about your uncle.
My Uncle Cleve.
Uncle
Cleve Mormon.
Cleve?
Cleve Mormon.
Mormon, okay.
The incredible man. How do you describe him? He's not describable. He's so different. He was the light bulb in my life relative to an entrepreneurial journey. He owned the only ice house in Glen Allan, Mississippi. If you were white, you needed his ice. If you were Chinese, one Chinese family, you needed his ice. If you were Jewish, two Jewish families, you needed his ice. No matter who you were, no matter what your race, ethnicity, gender, whatever, you had to come to the ice house.
Yeah, there's no refrigeration.
No, people had ice boxes.
Okay.
You know what an ice box is?
Yeah. I remember, but it's not electric or anything.
No. But it's kind of insulated.
Yeah.
Because what people would do, they would leave, if you had a 15 pounds of ice or 25 pounds of ice, most people got 25 pounds of ice. They'd leave a little note on their freezer door. And you just put it in, they leave the money there, and you take it and go.
Okay. And how long would that last then?
Probably not long enough, because my uncle said he would want it to melt.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah. More business, right?
I mean, he was, if I would give him another name, it would be called Mo Business. M-O Business, Mo Business.
Mo Business.
Because, that was his whole life of business.
And, that's a really, you got an entrepreneur uncle, and it seems like you worked for him for a little bit.
Oh, yeah, that's the best job I had.
Okay.
Because to go to the fields is just, it was a culture within the field. It was a culture all of its own. And it was never one designed to push you into the future of your life.
No, yeah.
The fields were not designed for that. Uncle Cleve had watched me, and he told my punk, he said, "Punk, I want the boy to come work for me. I think he'll work out." because see, we had to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning. And Uncle Cleve did not understand 8:01. I mean, excuses, he don't know what an excuse is. And you could have one soda pop in the morning and one soda pop in the afternoon, and a moon pie in the morning and moon pie in the afternoon. And he had the green catch box. And he knew how, I don't know where he learned it from. He'd get out the route because he ran the route and I ran the business. I mean, I knew how to cut a 300-pound block of ice into two pieces of 150, again, 50 and 75 and 25. And I had to take the money, put the ice in there, and the people, because sometimes be 15 and 20 trucks lined up to get ice. You guys, this 13, 14-year-old boy had to chip away at it and get it done. Okay. But I got it done because you can't, he never understood not being able to do things right the first time.
Yeah, he's a businessman. His time is money. Is do it right.
He was no business.
Yeah,
that was his whole in life. Right. Business.
Wow, and you're in the moment. You're not realizing what all these experiences are preparing you for.
Not the slightest idea.
Yeah,
but I realized the generosity of his heart. I didn't know how to intelligently explain it because he would talk to me about everything. He said, "Are you reading? Are you going to school?" And he was just as concerned about education. He said, "If you don't go to college, you can go to the Air Force like my boy did." I mean, the whole idea was you're not going to sit here and rot as long as I'm alive. Sure. I'm going to make something out of it. I'm going to allow you to become someone. And when I spoke at the United Nations, in the Assembly Hall of the United Nations, I will never forget this as long as there's breath in my body. I got to the United Nations like 2 hours early because I had to go through security, and a lot of security. And when I got there, there were people in the lobby. I call it the Avenue of Secretaries. Well, the secretaries of the EE were there. And so I'm walking into the Assembly Hall where I would speak. It was a Global Innovation Conference. And I was introducing the book, Who Owns the Ice House? And I walked into the Assembly Hall, which is an incredible place. Not a human being in there but me. It's incredible. And I had to speak there. And then the lady came by and she had on a blue blazer. And I always thought if you got on a blue blazer, you got answer. I mean, that's the antidote for answer. And I said, "Ma'am, my name is Clifton Taulbert, and I'm one of the speakers. But I'm not quite sure where I sit or where my place is or whatever." And she didn't even answer me, but she turned around and she just pointed, just kicked him out like that, pointed. And there my name was in light up in the front of the auditorium. And she said, "That's where you speak." I said, "Oh, thank you." And when she left out, a Pope came in to meet me, not in reality. But I can promise you, every of those old people from Glen Allan, they were piled in that room with me. And I stood there by myself and cried like a baby. Because they are the ones who paid for that ticket. They are the ones who made me go to school. I had a 4.0. I never missed a day in school in my life. I'm a member of Phi Beta Kappa today. Started in 1776. I just got a call from Phi Beta Kappa 3 weeks ago. We're doing a story on your life. And I just got a call yesterday, not day before yesterday. Mr. Taulbert, you'd be kind enough to send us 3 pictures for which we can choose from. All because of those people. And standing in the United Nations, I just cried. Because I realized if I had not had those people, there's no way that I would have been in that place. I mean, I was there for them. They couldn't come. They lived the segregated life. They didn't know any other life. That's the only life they knew. But they were determined that I would know a life that they didn't know. And so I spoke that night, and in a standing ovation, they wouldn't sit down.
Who else was speaking that night?
The president of, what's the place? Dell computer.
Dell computer.
Computer.
Yeah.
And there's a lady who owned more television stations than anybody in the world individually owned. There's the three speakers, president of Dell Computer, myself, and this particular lady. And I've been trying to reach the person that was my contact because I want the lady's name. She's very, very, very well known in the computer world, technology world.
So you got a standing ovation that night. What did you talk about? What was your?
I talked about the role that individuals play in helping to create the legacy of someone else.
Wow. Okay.
And that's what I talked about. What will your legacy be? Was the title. What are you going to leave for someone else? Because in my life, in my story, I'm always referencing someone who's done something for me. And that gives me my call to action. What do I do for others as well? But the next day, I'm on 46th Street in New York City. And the next morning, I had to go back over to the United Nations because I had to give another talk that morning. But it was not as important as the talk I'd already given. So I wasn't afraid of this one. This is no problem. But it was before COVID. So 46th Street, you didn't even have to walk. Just get in the middle of the street, stand there, and everybody's body would push you. Oh, so that's where I'm waiting to there. All right. So all of a sudden, on 46th Street, I hear, Mr. Taulbert, Mr. Taulbert.
In New York City.
In New York City.
Okay.
And I turned around and said, that's me, I'm Mr. Taulbert. Aren't you? Yeah, Clifton, you're Mr. Taulbert. So I stood on the sidewalk and waited. This white gentleman, about 56 or 60 years old, came up. He said, I heard you last night. He said, I haven't heard anything like that in my life. He said, you're from Tulsa, right? I said, yes, sir, I'm from Tulsa. He said, do you know the Helmry family? I said, yes, sir, I do. He said, I'm the hedge fund manager.
That was fine. Yeah, that's awesome.
On 46th Street in New York City. I'm answering questions about who lives in Tulsa.
That's fine.
But for his position in life and what he does and the people with whom he works, for him to sit through my talk says a lot. Even to the point of yelling me down on 46th Street for him to tell me how important that conversation had been to him.
I imagine you've had more conversations like that as well. You were talking about people calling you uncle, and I mean, I consider you like an uncle. You know, I grew up watching you, and learning from you from afar. But I remember some moments, looking back on our intertwined lives, where you impacted me, and your words really, really affected the people around you. And so, again, wanted to tell you that, like, this is part of me. I want to honor you during this conversation. And I know, again, kind of going back to chronological, let's go back to when you're in your teenage years. You're driving 100-mile round trip to school. You're working for your uncle. It's still segregated, Jim Crow, Harris South. Tell me, some of the, like, that transition from being a teenager, what's going on when you're a teenager, and then how you, or what decisions you made, as you graduated.
During that process of being a teenager, especially around the 11th grade, Uncle Cleve became very important. He drove 20 miles an hour, no matter what. And the dogs and the kids would keep up with him, and he didn't care. But I'm sitting on the passenger side of his 1947 International pickup truck. And we passed by a juke house. You know what a juke house is?
No. A juke house.
Juke, J-U-K-E.
Okay. Yep.
You know what a juke is?
It's like probably a music, a dancing hall or something like that.
It's a place where young boys and young girls are not supposed to go. But that's where every boy and every young girl wants to go, because that's where all the blues things come. That's where all the dancing take place. All the food get food at the guests. And I don't think I've ever been. I never could go. I remember one time they sold hamburgers. A lady by the name Miss Beauty sold hamburgers at the James Gaston Rich bar, and Uncle Cleve would say he passed by the bar. The kids are out there probably shooting dice, playing dice. I don't know what the activated term is, but it's dice. And he said, "Now you see that? Yes, sir. If you want this life for the rest of your life, go over there and get a chair. But if you want to make something out of your life, stick your head in those books and you keep them there. Don't come up to this place. It has nothing to offer you at all, nothing." So that's what my punk was telling me. That's what Uncle Cleve was telling me. That was Papa was telling me. That's what my birth mother was telling me. And that's why I call them the porch people. They're still on the front porch. You walking by, minding your own business. "Hey, boy." Yes, ma'am." "You gonna walk by and not speak to me?" "No, ma'am, I'm sorry." "Well, Miss Sissy, how you doing?" "I'm doing good, ain't I? I'm talking to you." Within the black community that I lived in, there was such a tremendous respect for each other. So I can hardly understand the challenges that many of us face today. I mean, it was just like older people were like the last word. You didn't talk back. You just did it. And when you graduated from high school, they'd have a present for you. And when you went to college, I remember my great aunt, her boy was in college at Alcorn University. And she was raising money in the cotton field. She had a snuff. She dipped snuff. Not supposed to dip snuff, not good for you. But she would keep it in her coat pocket so nobody would see it. But you knew she dipped snuff. And when the snuff thing got empty, she would ask people, she said, "I'm going to see the boy. That's her son. I need to take him some spending money. Well, y'all going to help me out?" And we said, a quarter, 50 cents, or whatever. But in there, and the idea was, if we got one in college, we all got one in college. It wasn't just when I graduated at valedictorian of my class in Greenville, Mississippi, which was the Queen City of the Delta, and I'm living in Glen Allan. Everybody in Glen Allan knew it. Everybody, because I had done that for them. I looked well on their resume, because they would take part of the credit for raising me.
Sure.
He was raised right here with us. When I was assigned to the 89th Presidential Wing during the Vietnam War, I went to Washington. I didn't realize they had to get a top secret clearance from me at the time. I'm in the Air Force at Dow Air Force Base. As he went to Glen Allan.
Is that where you went right out of high school?
No, right out of high school, I went to St. Louis. I went to banking school.
Oh, okay.
In fact, I was the only black person, probably one of the first black person to go to St. Louis Institute of Banking.
Wow. Okay. So you go to banking school, and then Vietnam is happening. So
Right.
you get drafted or
No,
volunteer? No.
no, that's I volunteered for the Air Force.
Okay.
And that's one of the great blessings I gave myself without knowing it. Because 2 weeks later, I got a very thick letter from my pump in Glen Allan. Because Glen Allan is where I would have registered at 18 in Mississippi. Because then you had the, what do you call it? When you had no choice, you had to go to the military. Drafted. Yeah, drafted was there. So anyway, in this thick envelope, it was my greeting from the United States Army. You've been hereby. Where everybody went to the Army, there was black dye in Glen Allan.
Wow.
I mean, They were dying like crazy.
So the Army then drafted her.
No, because I already held the hand up for the Air Force.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow.
You know, and that was one of my moves that I made strategically that probably saved my life.
Wow. So you get this packet after you're already in the Air Force. They saying, wow, okay. So you moved to Washington, D.C. for that time?
When I got assigned the presidential wing, it was 89th Presidential Wing is located in Maryland, right outside of D.C.
Okay.
So I was at Andrews Air Force Base is where I lived.
Okay.
But I worked at the 89th Presidential Wing. So I was still an airman. But I was a sergeant at the time, Brett.
How long were you in the Air Force?
4 years.
4 years?
Yeah. It was for me the first things to a lot of things. That was the first time that I remember getting on the train in St. Louis, the Texas Long Star. I think that was the name of it. It took us to the Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas. I'll think of the name of the base eventually, but it was in San Antonio. And that was my first introduction to the possibilities of integration. I had heard the word, but it was not my reality. Even when I was going to school in Greenville, riding the bus every day, the bus driver would tell us that we're going to be integrated pretty soon. There'll be white kids on this bus. Just telling y'all now. But it didn't happen in my time. It was scheduled to happen, but it didn't. But at the Air Force, I raised my hand, sworn in to serve my country as a white guy named Jerry Williams. And Jerry was from Alton, Illinois. And Jerry and I became friends. If I'm not mistaken, the trains were still segregated at the time. And so I had to sit in a colored section of the train, even though I'm going to the military. But Jerry was a well-known baseball player in Alton, Illinois, in high school, which means he probably had more guts and forthrights than I have. So when Jerry realized that we couldn't sit together where he was, he goes, "Well, I'm not having any of that, blank. I'll come back and sit with you. But we ain't going to say we're in this war together." He said, "I'll sit with you." And we were friends for the whole time in the military. And we were in the last group to do that outrageous type of, not exercises, but to make you militarily ready. You had to do exercises, you had to do schedules to do things to build your physicality that I didn't know about. I mean, I was an athlete, so I didn't have too much to bring to the table. And I remember we had an inverted wall that you had to get back maybe a quarter of a mile back or half a mile and run up this. The wall is coming in this way. And you had to run into the wall this way and get to the top of it and jump over the other side. But I had flunked about 3 times. And Jerry said, "T, can't have this. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in front of you. And I'm going to be on that side of that wall to catch you." He said, I want you to run as fast as you can and don't think about running as fast as you can. Just run as fast as you can and just know that my blank white hand is going to be up here to catch you." Okay? I thought, yeah, I got it. That's what I did. And I passed my physical deal. And Jerry said, "Now just keep in mind, you owe that to me, okay?" I said, "Yeah, I guess I do." But prior to that, my world had been 99.9% black.
Yeah.
There were no white people in it.
Wow. And so then you get through your weeks of
6 weeks.
6 weeks of training. Now what's next after training?
Well, you have to do another 6 weeks, I believe. It's not. It's kind of training, but it's not physical training now. You're getting ready to see what your classification will be. After this training, you receive your classification.
Okay.
And my classification ended up being administrative supplies. The classification was administration.
Okay.
But the work I would do would be in the supply depot for the military.
Okay. So then you're still in San Antonio. You're working
No,
logistics.
I had to go to another place. I can't think of the name right now. We left San Antonio and went to the next training place, which I was getting ready to tell you, and the name skipped me, so I apologize.
No worries. And so that's more taking tests.
It's more like school.
Aptitude.
Aptitude. Yeah.
Okay. So you then get place and supply chain.
Right.
You eventually make your way to
my permanent orders comes at that place.
Okay. To the
Dallas Air Force Base.
Okay.
Bangor, Maine.
Okay.
And that's where, and I went to school while I was there at the University of Maine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You concurrently, while you were in the military, you're going back to school. You've already got your banking certification or banking degree. And where are you studying at Maine?
I'm just taking the first courses for college, but I'm an undergraduate. And Mrs. Rogenbauer was my English teacher. And I had written a paper, which was required to do. And it came back to me. You couldn't even see the white on the paper. It was so much red. And Mrs. Rogenbauer came back to me. She said, Clifton, you have so much to say. Promise me you will learn how to say it right. I said, I promise you I will. And when I got my first book published, I sent a note to her. I said, you started me on the right tracks. Never be satisfied with red letters on your paper. Always know you can do better. And so once that happened, it's kind of dumb. I can write. I got something I can say. And I started writing those letters to people back in Glen Allan. I had a yellow notepad, those long pads about like that, because there was no laptop or stuff like that to rubber to handle.
Okay.
I kept them in a pasteboard box under my bed, and wherever I got transferred militarily, I would take that pasteboard box with me with these field notes, these yellow pads, legal pads, all filled levels.
And that then becomes Once Upon a Time.
And it also becomes The Last Train
North, which you were nominated for a Pulitzer Prize on that one.
And I was the first African American to win the Mississippi Institute of Arts and Letters Award for nonfiction.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that was one of my great joys, to break the Mississippi code.
Yeah.
And
so, let's go back real quick to Mississippi. The KKK was prevalent during that time.
But how do you say this? I would say all the black adults and men in particular knew who the white Ku Klux Klan people were. And they knew that you knew them. But I don't remember seeing a Ku Klux Klan dressed in uniform while I was growing up. I've heard about their meetings. I remember the night that they were raising money at my great aunt Mom Punk's church to send Brother Joe Maxey to Baltimore to the NAACP meeting. And that's the only time I remember them being scared. I was scared. They went to the St. Mark Church, and they had their guns with them, their rifles.
The KKK did?
No.
Oh, okay.
My family or friends and people like that.
Wow.
Because that meeting could have drawn the Ku Klux Klan out.
Gotcha.
But they weren't sure. So I remember my papa was holding my hand, walking down this gravel road to the church. And when we got there, the church was packed with people. And there was a black person with a gun at every door and at every window. I only saw that once, but I never forgot it. And the Ku Klux Klan, I worked at a grocery store when I was growing up. And the guy, the family who owned the guy who owned the store was I think you call him wasn't a parliamentarian. What do you do when you're giving, like, reading the scripture, giving a prayer? There's a term for that. But anyway, the guy that I worked for was a member of the Ku Klux Klan. And I remember one day he was talking to someone and he used the N-word. And he knew that I heard it. And when everybody was going out of the store, he called me up front. And he looked up in the ceiling. He didn't look at me. He just said, "I promise you, I'll never use that word in front of you again."
Wow.
That was my Ku Klux Klan.
Okay. And so going on in American culture at the time when you're graduating high school, had Martin Luther King Jr. or Malcolm X, were they real famous at the time?
Yeah.
Um,
Martin Luther King was becoming, Malcolm X was becoming their own separate strand, but they're becoming well known. Glen Allan, our hometown, there was a guy there named Jake Ayers, a black guy that was very important in the civil rights movement. And Glen Allan was one of the places where, for I think that was the big march, and they brought people in from all over the country. 3 guys got killed.
Yeah. In Alabama.
In Alabama.
Yeah.
No, there was in Mississippi. 3 guys got killed.
Okay.
And they were there from Boston, somewhere back east. But people stayed with the people, different homes, at their homes for the people to stay in while they were there, being trained. And that was something that was so quiet that I never read it till and no one ever said it. And it was like a very quiet happening that happened, but it wasn't conversation that was told abroad or anything like that. People came from all over the country to be trained in non-violent protests.
Yeah. And they're probably scared to talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that you couldn't, again, you could talk even in your house. You were very cautious, even if it's your relatives, what you said and how you said it. But for the most part, none of that ever entered your daily living at your property, at your house, at your church, and at the Black Cemetery.
So from a civil rights movement standpoint, Vietnam's going on, you're in the military. And yeah, I'm sure there were some people in your community that were more passionate or angry or bitter about the situation, but it seems like what you're saying, it wasn't wasn't focused on in your house.
Well, I don't know how to explain. The night my aunt had to go to that church, she went. Glen Allan is very small. You have to be very thoughtful as how you live your life in a small place like that. But for me, just looking at my life and trying to put my fingers on it, I was always more thoughtful about my actions than others. Yeah, because I had family members who were very. It's almost like my punk. They put it in my head. You can help us. Talking about the black grades, thus, if you get an education, don't let nothing interfere with that. Get your education, and you're able to use it. And I think for me, that's what I did. So the passion that some of my other friends had and family members, they may have lived on plantations. That's different than myself. I lived in the town. plantations, you're owned by someone else primary. It's like a watered down version of slavery. You don't, the house you live in, the furniture, and nothing is yours. And so you live your life according to the thesis of someone else. I was fortunate. I lived in my folks' house that she bought with her money. And so I had that independence around me, but I also had that we'll be demanding something of you when it's your time. It's sort of like they understood that there will be multiple times and there will be people for those times. Everybody would not be called for the same times. Because when Once Upon a Time When We Were Colored came out, it had its debut in Greenville, Mississippi, the Queen City of the Delta. It was so many people. The police had to come and make line. I've never autographed that many books in my life until when I went home to Greenville for Once Upon a Time in New York. And now I'm getting the story of who we are into the homes and lives of people who didn't know us. We just lived across the road, but no one knew how we lived, who lived, and what we were, if we had dreams or no dreams at all, or what the case may have been. But as a writer, you can take a person home.
Thank you for joining us on this journey towards the long horizon. If you haven't yet, make sure to check us out on YouTube or follow us on your favorite social media and podcast platforms. We here at the Long Horizon Show are focused on building community. If you know someone who is seeking wisdom or could benefit from a community like ours, make sure to share this episode.